Well, hello everyone. Welcome to the Remote No Pressure podcast. We have an excellent interview this week. I'm very excited to bring it to you. Before we get started, though, I just want to encourage you to go to our website, to remotenopressure.com, and on the very first page it says join the movement or join the mailing list or something like that. Sign up for our mailing list. I'm asking you because you are not going to want to miss out what's coming up in the next few weeks. Be sure to sign up for our mailing list. That's what I'm going to tell you. Now, that out of the way, this week we have an unbelievable guest, world record holder, Houstonian. She's done a lot of great things for fly fishing. And yeah, it's great. It's Meredith McCord, and it's an excellent interview. A fellow Houstonian. Welcome to the podcast. Let's light the fire. Well, today on the Remote No Pressure podcast, we have Meredith McCord with us. Thank you very much for joining us, Meredith.
Happy to be talking to you, Jeff.
So you just got back from a late night of fishing last night, and before we started the podcast, you were talking about you were chasing world records, and that's kind of what you're known for, isn't it, Meredith?
Well, I don't know if I'm known for it, but I sure love the challenge. It's a lot of fun. It started kind of back in 2012, randomly, with someone saying, "Hey, you need to chase world record redfish down in Louisiana." I think there's a lot of soft records, meaning records that are pretty attainable for women on class tippet, and class tippet meaning and alluding to fly rod leaders. And so I was like, oh, okay, tell me more about this. And all of a sudden I started looking into it and did realize that they were very quote unquote doable records and started chasing them. And I'll tell you, after my first record, which was, I believe, like a 30-pound redfish on 16-pound class tippet, I was hooked. And it's just kind of been a little bit of a adventure ever since, but a lot of fun.
Well, if you could tell us a little bit about Meredith, a little bit about how you got into fly fishing itself.
I would love to. So fly fishing for me came just as a compliment to the angler that my parents had brought me up to be. I was holding a rod and reel in my hand, or actually probably just a rod, no reel attached, when I was, just a toddler. And as the years passed and as I grew older, then I got a spinning reel on my rod, and then kept going from there. And I had fishing grandparents on both sides, fishing parents. And so that was just something my dad and mom always taught us to do. And that was how we spent our time, was either bass fishing in Texas ponds, or we were up in Canada at our summer cabin catching perch and crappie and walleye, pike, and even muskie. So fly fishing actually didn't come on my radar until later, when I was exposed to bone fishing in Belize and was doing it with a shrimp on the end of a spinning rod, when I saw someone fly fishing at the same time or simultaneously in that same year, saw a river run through it. Yes, I'm that girl that saw a river run through it. I'm like, ooh, wasn't looking at Brad Pitt. I was actually looking at how they were proceeding to catch those trout, and was oohing and awing about that, and said, that's what I want to do. I want to go back and do that for bonefish down in Belize. And so in the mid-90s, that's what I started doing, and absolutely fell in love with it. After college, moved to Jackson Hole, Wyoming, to learn the art of fly fishing. In fly casting, I thought that it was just going to be, I'd go for the summer and then would be an expert in the sport, not realizing that very similar to golf, it is a lifelong sport, and there is good days and bad days, consistencies and inconsistencies. And still today, I have been known to do my Snoopy dance on the casting platform after a bad cast. And that's just kind of a little bit of I don't know if you know what a Snoopy dance is, but he kind of like stomps his feet and kind of jumps up and down and kind of goes around in a circle. I'm going to do that when I make a bad slice off the fairway as well.
So we're at in Texas. You said some Texas ponds. We're at in Texas. Where you fishing? What ponds?
Well, I grew up in Houston, Texas, and in the when I was really young, my parents bought a little ranch outside of Houston in a town called Navasota, not too far from where Texas A&M is located. And we have a couple of just small little acre to 5 acre, we call them tanks here in Texas, or ponds. And Dad would stock them with bass and catfish and tilapia and blue-eared little panfish. And so we always had lots to catch when we were kids with worms and cane poles. And then, of course, as we got older and older, we started using scrubs and soft plastics and even, I want to call them poppers, but that's not the conventional name for them. Topwater. Sorry, it took me a minute.
Yeah, that's
topwater
funny.
lures. And yeah.
Yeah, that's funny. My grandfather was a rancher down in Corsicana, Texas, just south of Dallas, and he had
Nice.
a big tank there, And my wife is from Michigan, so we go down there and visit my grandparents. And my grandma said, "Well, why don't y'all walk on down to the tank down there?" And my wife had no idea. She thought it was like a water tank, or like she had no idea what a tank was, And I'm like, "Oh, that's
exactly. Most people don't. That's why I'm like, okay, a tank is a pond in Texas.
It's a
I don't
pond.
know why we call them tanks.
Yeah. I don't know either. That's a great question, because it's not like it's a pond everywhere else, but for some reason, us Texans, we have our own lingo, I guess, and it's a tank.
True.
So,
in the country of Texas, we call them tanks.
Oh, those hot summer days, and it's just like there's nothing, nothing like it. Nothing like fishing at the tank. So, totally.
I agree. I agree.
So, how has fly fishing helped you in your professional life?
Wow, Jeff, that's a good question. My professional, as in my business life?
Yeah,
like my real life? Like my life outside of fly fishing life?
Yeah, I mean, you've got a lot going on, right? I mean, you're a go-getter.
I do.
I mean, how is... obviously you love the chase, and that's part of your life, but how has it helped you with life?
That's a great question. I'm going to answer that, I think, in two ways. One, I think first I would tell you that it has taught me a lot about preparation and patience. As in with business, nothing's going to happen overnight. And so you've got to have a lot of patience. You've got to have a patience with your employees. I've got about 25 during busy season, 30 people that work for me. And you've always got to have patience and communication with those employees and with my clients in general. And then preparation. And going back to that patience, of course, any fishing, any sport, it takes a lot of patience. Whether you're stoked up waiting for that tarpon to swim by, or you're pulling a flat looking for the permit or the redfish or the bonefish, you're waiting. You're having to wait. It's a waiting game. Or even if it's waiting on the weather to shape up, there's a good bit of waiting that requires a lot of patience. And then I think we go into preparation. You just can't open a business and just have it booming. You've got to prepare. And for everything that you do and every marketing promotion that I do, I've learned this sometimes the hard way, where I have bright ideas, but then I just want it to happen overnight versus taking the time to prepare in advance. And so that when the event occurs, we've already done everything that we need to do before the event. A lot of that plays into fly fishing as well. And I've learned this in traveling, is that you have to be properly and best prepared for each of those trips. You can't show up to fish for giant trevallies with your 4-weight trout rod. You've got to have the right tippet and the right lines and the right rod and the right equipment in order to be successful. And all of that takes research, whether on the business side or on the fly fishing side. And so I guess maybe in those two ways, fly fishing has kind of taught me more to have better patience, even with my business, and do better preparation, because I have no problem whatsoever doing the research, reading up on any of my trips and making sure I'm geared appropriately. But in business, for some reason, I don't do it as well as I do it in fly fishing. And then finally, I think that fly fishing helps me just as a balance of life. And I think a lot of people will tell you this, is that fly fishing for me is a way that I can check out of the rat race, check out of my mind that seems to go 100 miles per hour. And it just allows me to not black out, but almost concentrate on one thing solely. And that's just what's in front of me. And there's rare an opportunity that I ever just settle down and can just focus on one thing. But when I'm fly fishing, nothing else seems to like enter into my peripheral vision. There's no cell phone. There's no email to return. I can't even think about business when I'm on the flat. All I'm thinking about is that fish that's hopefully going to show up in front of me, or that's going to hit my line or hit my fly. And so for me, it's a great balance to my daily life, because I've got so many balls in the air. It's the one place that I can just solely focus on one thing, and it feels so right and so good.
You've been in business for a while, in your professional business there, and you've seen society evolve a lot. You're dealing face to face with customers. As a whole, in business, and every day, I can't, Houston traffic and all, every day, have you noticed people are juggling more balls in life these days, or have you seen that stress level go up? I mean, outside of fly fishing, but just in society, have you seen that rat race get faster, or is it the same speed but maybe just different?
That's a great question, Jeff. I think we've always been busy and we've always put a lot on our plate, but I do believe that social media is driving us more so than we would probably even give credit to, but it is causing us to jump from one thing to the next thing, to always have something fresh and new to show. And maybe that's even speaking about myself personally. I don't know. But I would definitely, even if I'm looking at and really evaluating a lot of the stuff that works for me in this new generation coming up, which are the millennialists, it's a totally and completely different culture from how I grew up. I mean, we did things a little bit more simply, but we didn't have this extra audience of the big wide web looking in on our daily lives.
I'm not a millennial. I'm an Xer. I was born in 1980. So I didn't grow up with social media. I mean, we never even had a computer until later in high school, and it sure as heck wasn't connected to the internet. So I didn't grow with that. But you know what? But my parents thought we were just a bunch of punk kids. And the generation before that thought the generation coming up now, there's always been the lazy kids, it's like, they don't understand it like what we went through, and I think sometimes millennials kind of get this bad rap because, but we were all that way, I mean.
And I agree. I mean, listen, I was a rebel with the best of them, and I was a little punk kid. The difference, though, I will say about today versus yesterday, is who I was being a punk kid with. At least there, and I might be being hated right now for saying this, I was having relationships with people, real live telephone conversations. And when I said, "Hey, let's meet at the movies at 6," man, if I wasn't there, like they were trying to find a landline to call my parents to tell me I was late. I wasn't able to just text them and be like, "Dude, I'm 30 minutes late." And so there was an obligation to show up when you said you were going to show up, to make plans, to actually stick with your plans. Mm-hmm. So I think that that's different today, and I think our relationships look different today. Is we're not buffered by that text message or that Instagram message or comment where we can hide behind the screen. Mm. If you had something to say to someone, or if you wanted to ask someone out on a date, I'm single, so I've been single good amount of my life. And so I know the difference. I used to get a phone call or someone would ask me out in person. Today, more and more, I'm getting an Instagram, a Facebook, or a text message asking me out. Where are the days where you call up someone and you say, hey, I'd like to see if you'd like to go out with me to dinner? And it's just a different, and again, maybe it's making me sound old-fashioned, but I just think we've lost that. I think these devices that we hold have come in between our relationships.
Yeah. Yeah, I totally...
Is that getting way too deep?
No,
yeah.
That's exactly what we want. I don't know if you've listened to any of our episodes, and I don't mean to put you on the spot, so I'm not going to ask you if you've listened to any episodes, okay? But this is exactly what we're about.
I'm not yet, but I will.
I know. That's what everybody says. That's why I never ask if you've listened, because I learned very early not to ask people if they've listened to an episode or not. But this is what we're all about. Really the philosophy of life and people who are fly fishing, why you are fly fishing, and how fly fishing has changed, you know. And I think we're seeing a change. Also, you know, you talk about the millennial generation. I mean, when you take a look at, you know, we've talked to a lot of fly shop owners on the podcast, you know, where the fly shop used to be the hub. You know, you go there, you learn how to tie flies, you buy everything there. And now people are, you know, they have online communities, and there's some great fly shops that are doing it right, you know, and that are awesome. But, you know, we're seeing these things change. And I think the fly fishing component, you know, you're going to have to develop relationships when you're on the water with if you go with people, if you don't go by yourself. You know, you develop relationships, you develop a camaraderie. And used to, you know, we would go online or video game or whatever to escape the real world. Now it seems like we're going to the real world to escape. You know what I mean?
Very well said. Yeah. Yeah.
And I think
we're going to the real, actual, tangible experiences to escape from the electronic world.
Exactly.
I think that's very well said.
And I'm very excited.
I totally agree with that.
I'm very excited about fly fishing because that's exactly what we need. I know I sound like an evangelist, right? But it's exactly what we need in this culture in today. And it's not just the millennials, but it's the people who are stressed out, the people who have got too much on their plate, that are juggling too many balls. They need to get on the river, they need to get on the flats, and they need to go fishing.
Absolutely. Well, and for me, my passion has always been kids, and I don't have any personally, but have 7 nieces and nephews, and have always worked with kids, whether in my church or through different, you know, church organizations or high school ministries. I love kids, and I really think we have a great advantage if we can get kids out from behind their devices, their TVs, their video games, and off their cell phone and into the great outdoors. I mean, that is where the beauty of this escapism is helping them to escape from the grind. I mean, I think today more kids are on antidepressants than ever before, and I think the reason why is they're sitting there comparing themselves to everyone else online and just not going out and living life for themselves.
Right. Being a female angler, a record breaker, an entrepreneur, and the things that you have accomplished, how important has it been to be the true Meredith McCord, to be yourself?
Oh, it's super important. I mean, anybody that meets me, I mean, I think will tell you, I mean, I'm my own person. I'm not going to bend or shape for anyone. I love the sport, and I just am passionate about it and want to share my joy and my love for it with other people. And I know my personal social media does not please everyone. I know that there's always going to be people out there that are going to be naysayers, but I hope at the end of the day, what you see is transparency and an authentic girl that just is a little bit eaten up with this bug called fishing.
And I think that's why you've been so successful. I really do, because I
hope so.
It's being authentic. And I think a lot of times, you know, especially in social media, we lack authenticity, you know, and we trying to put on being someone that we're not. And by being yourself, you know, I give you kudos for being yourself. Was that always the case? Have you always been really secure in yourself? Very, hey, I love Meredith McCord. Have you always been that way, or was that a process?
You know what? I think it's always a process, and there's definitely days I'm, bummed out, or I get somebody saying something very negative on one of the social media platforms. But I think I've got two things in my life that I think has helped me with that, and just feeling confident in who I am. Is number one is my faith in God. I'm loved by the creator of the universe. I was created for a purpose by him, and he made me the way that I am, and he loves me. So for me, and I know a lot of listeners out there might, not believe in God. I do. And I think that that's where I get a lot of my confidence. I know I'm broken. I know I have a lot of bad stuff in my life, but the creator of the universe still loves me apart from all of that nasty stuff. And so that gives me a lot of confidence. And then also, I have an incredible family. I grew up with a father who was very affirming, verbally affirming, a mother who was just always, quality time with all of us. I mean, loving parents, always encouragers. I mean, my dad and mom were the biggest cheerleaders in our lives, and continually spoke truth into our lives, called us out where we need to be called out, but loved us throughout the thick and thin. And I think that also really helps, is just having a really good relationship with my parents, spending a lot of time with them as children, and kind of doing our own things, whether it was at our cabin in Canada with no TV. All we did was listen to 50s music. I know every word to every Elvis Presley song and Buddy Holly. Or if it was at the farm, again, no TV. We didn't grow up. My parents are like, you don't watch sports, you go play sports. And so that was our mentality, super old school, but we're just a very tight-knit family, and, with our base and belief in God.
Wow, that's fantastic. Yeah. No TV, and, I have an 8-year-old and a 4-year-old. He'll be 5 this week, and he reminds me every day he's almost 5. But he always they come up to me and they tell me, Dad, I'm bored, because, we tell them no TV, no computer for a while, And when they tell me, when they tell me I'm bored, it's like music to my ears. I'm like, great, go do something with your brain. Just
what are we going to do about it?
Yeah.
So we would do the same thing. We'd be like, we're bored. And I mean, you should see some of the funny VCR videos that my brother and sister and I would make with our friends. Like, we would do our own soap operas. We didn't really know about soap operas because we weren't allowed to watch them, but we kind of had an idea that it was highly dramatic. And so we would make up these, like, we often did plays. I mean, we did a whole bunch of crazy random things. Lots of gaming too.
Yeah.
Whether it was Monopoly or Connect 4 or chess or whatever, we did a lot of games.
Yeah. Let me ask you this question. This is a very personal question. This is a very intimate question, and you can choose to answer this, or you could choose to not answer. But what was the first VHS tape you ever rented? Do you remember that? I'm totally kidding. It's not really that big of a deal.
You know what? I think I can tell you what it was, because I couldn't. We weren't allowed to rent them, but my dad was addicted to the Home Shopping Network, and he loved buying things off the TV. It was one of his stress relievers while we weren't allowed to watch TV. Apparently, Mom would say at like 2 or 3 in the morning when Dad couldn't sleep, he'd turn on the Home Shopping Network, or the equivalent in those days, and would buy something. And so we often had a ton of like 5 hours of bebop music from Motown music. He was always that guy that bought those cassette tapes and stuff. But he also bought a whole run of movies. They must have sold these VHS movies. And so we had it's super random, but my dad loved musicals. Wow. And I'm telling you, normal guy. He just was a product of his, of the 50s. But so he must have bought a box set or something. My Fair Lady, Sound of Music, that whole genre.
Mm.
So Mary Poppins. So growing up, I mean, that was when I think of what movies did we watch growing up. That's what we watched. very, very PG, very PG. Now I do remember Dad bought Top Gun,
Oh.
and we all started watching it and realized real quickly that we shouldn't be watching it because there was some bad language and there might have been some people doing something in the bedroom. So those are my memories of VHS.
Oh, VHS. I was thinking that the other day. I almost put that question out on Twitter. Like, what was your first VHS tape? And I know it has nothing to do with fly fishing, but our first VHS tape, we went to Brookshire Brothers. I don't know if you're familiar with that chain.
Yeah,
Right,
absolutely.
right. So we used to be able to rent VHS tapes there. So my dad bought this VCR, and it was gigantic. It was like the size of our actual TV, And so he hauls us down there, and we get Where the Red Fern Grows and Old Yeller were the two videos.
Oh my gosh, were y'all just bawling, crying the entire time?
Oh my gosh, we didn't even know what was going to happen in Old Yeller till the end. I'll never forget, permanently scarred, from that movie. But both of those they just rip your heart right out of you. But
I still to this day cannot watch any dog movies just because they make me too sad. Even the animated ones make me too sad.
Yeah, that's funny. Yeah, well, that's great.
Where the Red Fern Grows. Gosh, I think I read that book in 4th grade and just remember crying my eyes out.
Oh, why would they make you read that book as a 4th grader? I have no idea.
No. I have no idea. But it's very, I think, similar to, like, I haven't seen it or read it because I had a young lad, but I think the Marley and Me book that kind of recently hit, like, a lot of popularity, and then it came out as a movie. Same thing. I think a lot of young kids were reading that. I mean, I don't mean to be a spoiler alert, but I think something died.
It doesn't end well.
No.
So let me ask you. I got a couple more questions for you. Number one is what are you seeing in the female? As we see female anglers coming up, are you seeing just a lot of traction there? Are you excited about that?
Absolutely, I'm all for that, and I'll do whatever I can to bring more women and more young girls into this sport. But again, I think it's an exposure issue. The more that we can expose to the sport and the more that we can bring children up, like like you're kind of saying with your kiddos, where they're not sitting in front of the TV, instead of we're like, come on, let's get out, let's go down the river, or let's go to the lake, or let's go wherever it is. That you're bringing them up doing that. I think that that's going to really, really help this next generation, because then those girls automatically have that ingrained in them. Sure, let's go fishing. Sure, I'll try something new, because my parents always took me to do new fun things.
Yeah, I get it. Now, one more.
I mean, it's just
go ahead.
Paving the way.
Yeah.
No. I was just going to say I think parenting is just paving the way.
Yeah, it's exposing them to those things. It's really the parent's responsibility, not a retailer's responsibility, to expose females to angling.
Absolutely. Or even a boy. I mean, so many of my girlfriends got into it thanks to a boyfriend or a husband. And the girls are like, I would have never done it, but I was trying to impress him.
Yeah.
Or I just wanted to spend time with him, and my love language was quality time, and this is how he wanted to spend his time. So I went along, and all of a sudden I found out I'm better than he is at it. And I caught all the fish. I hear that a lot, which always cracks me up.
Yeah, we hear that quite a few times. We've heard it quite a few times on the podcast, where women say, well, my boyfriend kind of, and the next thing you know, I'm tying flies and I'm better than he is, and now I love it, so that's...
Yeah, exactly. I do hear that a bunch, too.
One final question for you. Where do you see the industry going over the next 10 years? What are you excited about? What are you seeing that's changing, coming up? What are you seeing in the industry that over the next 10 years that you're excited about?
I think one of the neatest things, I will say a plug for social media and for all these films and film tours that are coming out, is that, and we've talked a lot about it in this podcast so far, is the word exposure, and getting exposed to something beyond that what your norm is in your everyday. And I think that these film tours and social media are bringing to light a lot of species and a lot of destinations that have never been on anybody's radars before. So I think that your trout guy that has a deep love of trout, or for me, a big bass fisherman that has this love of bass, will all of a sudden maybe consider places outside of their home waters, and work up to, or build up to, or save up for that trip outside of their comfort zone, if you will, to go pursue another species. Maybe it's a related species. For me, maybe, I love the peacock bass. In Brazil was very similar to my hometown bass, but man, it's colorful and much, much bigger, but eats the same and has that same fight. And I think in the next 10 years, we'll be seeing more and more of the traveling angler. And I'm excited about that. I'm very excited about that. And I think that goes hand in hand also into this generation we're saying that's coming up, that's already exposed to so many places and so many destinations that they're already, like I've told you, you see a trend of them hopping around from place to place. That's going to fit them really well.
That's great.
What do you think? Do you think that that's a viable thought?
Yeah.
That destination travel is going to be more of a thing than it ever has been in the past, and it doesn't have to be super expensive. I think we're going to see an onslaught of more affordable angling adventures at our fingertips.
What I'm excited about, speaking to that in particular, we had Oliver White on here, who has his whole nonprofit Indie Fly, and where we're seeing these unique destinations that are becoming fisheries, that are transforming the economy there. They're transforming the area, so that's what I'm excited about. And it speaks to exactly what you're saying. So we're these unique destinations where people are going and they may have never been there before, never tried fishing. And we're, I think fly fishing has the power to change the world in that regard, through traveling and through trips and through the, fly fishing film tour, exposing us to things like we've never seen before. So I'm excited.
Absolutely.
About that. And I'm excited. I'm excited to see clean water brought to people because of fly fishing. And we had when Oliver White was on the podcast, he talked about how all of a sudden everyone in this tribe wants to preserve the water, wants to preserve the fish. They're protecting it because they understand the importance of it. Not because the government's telling them what to do, but because they understand, because they're involved in the process. So that's what I'm excited about.
I agree.
All right. Well, hey, thank you very much for spending some time with us, Meredith.
Absolutely.
Well, thank you, Meredith, and thank you for listening to another episode of the Remote No Pressure podcast. What a journey we've been on, and it's been a great time hanging out with you guys, getting to know you. And like I mentioned at the beginning of this podcast, I'm going to encourage you to go to our website and sign up for our mailing list, especially if you're one of the newer listeners. What's going to happen is there's some things in the works that you're gonna want to be a part of, and we want to make that available to and I'm not trying to be like, no, don't tell them, they'll sign up for the mailing list. No, I'm serious. I really would like you to join the mailing list because I want you to enjoy the benefits of being some of the first people to listen to this podcast, especially some of you faithful listeners that I know who you are, and I see you like all of our pictures on Instagram. We've DM'd. I mean, it's just, I want you to enjoy what's coming. So go to our website, sign up for our mailing list. I cannot tell you how much I appreciate every one of you that listen every single week. And I can't tell you how much I appreciate every single person out there. And you may say, well, Jeff, I follow you on Instagram. I follow you guys on Facebook. I follow you on LinkedIn. I follow you on all these platforms. But I'm telling you, sign up for the mailing list because we're going to make an announcement here in the next few weeks probably. I'm thinking probably the first part of April it'll all be done. And I want you to experience it. It's especially for the people who have been listening for a while. And you guys, I mean we get several downloads, several thousand downloads a month at this point. Some of you have been listening since the founding, and especially you guys, the people who've been here for this journey so far. Sign for the mailing list. You can probably hear me smiling. So, well, anyways, thanks for listening. Thanks for joining us. Enough about the mailing list. All right. Until next time, go fishing.